Welcome to the Back to Basics Weight Loss Surgery channel. I am Dana, MsDanaGerous, and I'm your Saturday vlogger. Today is recipe day, and I'm returning a little bit to the plant-based eating recipes. This is called Socca, or it's basically a chickpea or a garbanzo flatbread, and I don't know that I'm pronouncing that right. It's spelled S-O-C-C-A. And it's really, I guess the origination of this is from Nice, which is in southern France. And I guess it's kind of a street food that they make there. Flatbread that they make kind of in open air markets. And they use chickpea flour or garbanzo bean flour. Very easy to do. So, really, 3 ingredients. And then some spices that you can play around with, and then whatever you want to do. So the main thing is the garbanzo bean or the chickpea flour. I got this at my local Sprouts market. You could probably get it from Whole Foods or probably any of the more natural food stores or sections that have natural food. This was, I think, between $3 and $4. This says good source of protein. Okay, yeah, it is protein in it, but you know, it's not a huge source of protein. I wouldn't say that this is going to be a major source of protein, but it has got some protein in it. And the great thing about it is, A, it's gluten-free. B, you're going to get a lot more fiber in this than you would in regular flour. So I kind of did some comparison on some nutrition facts. So chickpeas or garbanzo beans give you 10 different vitamins. It's got thiamine, B6, it's got folate, it's got vitamin E, it's got potassium. They're a good source of potassium, zinc, manganese. An actual cup of whole chickpeas, I guess they said, has as much potassium as a small banana. I didn't know that. As far as, you know, I did some comparison to a cup of chickpea flour versus a cup of whole, like an all-purpose flour. It has less carbohydrates and more fiber than white flour. So it still has carbohydrates. I don't know that I would necessarily do this recipe if you were a brand new newbie and you're trying to keep your carbs really low. But if you're out of ways and you're incorporating some complex carbs into your diet, I think this is going to be a good recipe for you to have every now and then, and that's what I'm doing. Okay, so in the bowl I have 2/3 of a cup of the garbanzo bean flour that was sifted. All the recipes that I found said sift the flour. So if you have a good old-fashioned sifter, then use that. I don't have one, so this is what I do when something calls for sifting, is I have one of these kind of, I don't know, sieves, and I put it in there and I use a spoon to kind of clatter it. It's slow, but it does the job. If you don't have that, I would say just make sure that you take a whisk or fork and break up the lumps real good. I think that's the really point, is that, you know, you're trying to make it fluffy and break up the lumps as much as possible. So 2/3 a cup of that garbanzo bean flour, a 1/3 of a teaspoon of sea salt. It's so funny because I have no measuring that's a spoon that's 1/3 of a teaspoon, but and then pepper. Some of the recipes I found said put a lot of pepper in it. Well, I put an 1/8 of a teaspoon of pepper, and just because I happen to have it on hand, I used white pepper that I got at my Sprouts market, and you buy it bulk. So I thought that would be fun. And so I put that in here, and then I have 1 cup of water, but we're going to add this a little bit at a time. So I'm going to add about a quarter of it. And then I'm going to mix it until it starts making a paste. And you will see it begins to make like a dough. And it's kind of balled up on the whisk. And then I'm just going to add, whoops, I'm splashing here. Maybe the whisk is not the best tool for this. It gets a little splashy. Pull out the spoon. Aha. That helps. And you're going to see it's going to get, yeah, now much thinner, you know, batter it like a batter. And there goes the remainder of the cup of water. And now it is really thin. And I want to just, you know, make sure all my little lumps are out of it. I think I made a little mistake by using the whisk initially. Might want to just use a spoon. I think maybe I mashed this out. And actually, you know, I think I could do this in a blender. I think it'd be easy to do this in a blender and blend up the batter so that it's smooth and not lumpy. Okay, so this is really juicy right now. And we are going to wait 30 minutes because what we're going to do is we want the flour, the garbanzo bean or the chickpea flour, to soak up some of this water. So I'm going to set the timer for 30 minutes. And we'll be back with you in a little bit. Okay, it's been 30 minutes. And my batter has been sitting. Now, it's still thin. It's still a thin batter, you will see. But it's not quite as watery, I would say, as originally. So I'm going to add a little bit of seasoning. Now, I know that you can add whatever seasoning that you want. The recipe that I'm using, I have a little bit of fresh rosemary. This is a half a teaspoon of fresh rosemary that I have chopped really, really finely. I have rosemary that grows out in my yard, and a little bit of rosemary goes a long, long way. So you could use all kinds of different spices with this. I think you want to experiment with it, play with it a little bit, but I'm using just a half a teaspoon of fresh rosemary, and I've mixed that into the batter. And on the stove, I have this is a 10.5-inch skillet. I think you can use a bigger skillet. You could use a 12-inch skillet. The stovetop recipe I had found said a 12-inch skillet. It depends on how, you know, however big the skillet is how thick your kind of flatbread is going to turn out. And I saw all kinds of recipes up to 1/4 cup of olive oil, etc. I'm trying to keep this on the low end of olive oil. So I am going to, this is a non-stick skillet, I'm going to put about a half a teaspoon of olive oil in the bottom of this skillet because this is no stick to begin with. And I am going to heat this over medium-high and get it, you know, fairly hot. And once this is in, I feel it's hot and I pour the batter in, I'm going to put a little more olive oil on the top. The base recipe that I started with used 1 teaspoon of olive oil on the bottom and then 2 teaspoons of olive oils on the top. I think you could play with this depending on, you know, how much fat you want. I'm trying to keep it low end. I have also seen this recipe where they do it in the oven. They started on a skillet and then they put it in the oven and finish it in the oven. Or they start it in a skillet and then they finish it under the broiler to kind of char or you know, give it a little more brown on the top, finish it off. So there's a lot of ways that you can do this. Okay, so my oil is kind of coated the pan now, you can kind of see, and I'm just going to pour my batter in. You can hear it sizzle a little bit. And we're going to let this cook for a couple of minutes. So I'm going to time it here. You can see it's going to cook kind of like a pancake, and what we want it to do is it's going to get kind of crispy on the bottom and set on the top. So I'm going to pause here and kind of watch the time and come back and let you know how long it's cooked. Okay, this has been cooking not quite a minute, and I have my temperature set on, 6.5 to 7. You see there's the temperature. And it's beginning to make a couple little bubbles, so I'm going to kind of go through there and just pop that little bubble. Looks almost like eggs, right? I'm just going to pop that, kind of shake it a little bit, and let it keep cooking. And the other thing I'm going to do here now is I'm going to drizzle another half a teaspoon of olive oil across the top. So I will do that and come back and take another picture. So that's my drizzle of the olive oil, the other half teaspoon of olive oil across the top. And I'm just going to kind of take my little brush and brush it around. The olive oil is going to add a little richness to it. Now again, you want to be real easy because this is still cooking. I noticed I've got little tracks. The original recipe I had was like 2 tablespoons of olive oil on the top. Boy, I used half a teaspoon on the or half a tablespoon on the bottom and a half a tablespoon on the top. And I'll tell you honestly, for me at this point, it looks plenty oily. So I am not so sure, unless you're super crazy about olive oil, whether or not I would like that. I do think this is looking really like it would be lovely if I put it under the broiler. I haven't decided that I'm going to do that at this point in time, but I can begin to see that the edges are kind of pulling away a little bit. The whole thing is looking a little more set. And you can kind of see, if I lift it up, it's beginning to feel kind of like an egg omelet would. So, okay, and it is now 10:29. We're about 4 minutes into the process. Okay, I had a fail, but I want you to see it. I lifted it up, and it was definitely right after I turned this off at 4 minutes. I realized that the middle was pretty brown. I tried to flip it, and it broke in the middle. But the edges are pretty, so I just went ahead and flipped it, and that's okay, because and I've turned off the heat, and I want you to see that I'm going to save it and make it look pretty. So I flipped it so that the top is going to kind of brown, but the heat is off, and I'm going to move it off. Okay. Here's the finished product. So what I did is I dumped it out in a pan, and even though it had a hole in the middle, I took my pizza cutter and I just cut it into 10 slices. But I probably, if I redo it, I'll cut it into 8 or 12, because what I've done is I've figured the calorie count if you have a quarter of the Socca or the flatbread. So this is still warm. Here's the thickness. Now this is the thickness of when I did it in a 10.5-inch skillet, okay? If you did it in a 12-inch skillet, of course it would be thinner. It's still warm, and so it's really pliable. If you finished it off in the broiler, I think this is the top side that was in the pan. If you finished it off in the broiler, then I think, this might be browner. This is the bottom side, okay? And it's just a really soft. I really have the rosemary flavor. I would not want to put more than that rosemary amount for me. I'm not a huge rosemary fan. A little bit goes a long way. This would be lovely with other kinds of herbs that you could play with. The chickpeas, you know, have, if you've had falafel or hummus, you know, they have kind of I don't know how to explain it. It's not buttery, but they have a different kind of a richness flavor, so you get that. It's really good. I could eat this just like this. So, here is the amazing thing that I think you can do with this. Well, first of all, let me give you the stats. Okay, so a quarter of the Socca is 103, with prepared the way I showed you, with only a tablespoon of the olive oil. If you do more olive oil, then, you know, you're going to have higher count. But honestly, this feels plenty fatty to me. And if you were going to top it with anything, you know, you'd have extra perhaps fat in that. So a quarter of the Socca is 103 calories, 5 grams of fat, 3 grams of sodium, 12 carbs, 3 of which are fiber, 2 of which are sugar, and 4 proteins. Okay, here's what I think you can do with this. One is you could take this before you cut it, and you could put some cheese and some vegetables on it and make it like some kind of a pizza. I would, you know, you might or might not have wanted to season the crust differently, but you could make it into a pizza. And I saw several recipes that did it like that. And just pop it in the oven or the broiler and, you know, heat the toppings and make it into a pizza. You know, some grilled chicken that you've already done and a little bit of cheese, maybe even some feta or something would be fabulous as a pizza. I think this would be really good with just some meat and cheese and make it almost like a roll-up. I'll be curious to see as it sits, you know, will it stay flexible? But to use almost like a bread. I think if you cooked it in a bigger skillet, then it would be more tortilla-like, less thin, and maybe next time I'll do it, I'll cook it in the same skillet, but I'll do a smaller amount of the batter to try to make it thinner. I really like the flavor a lot. It's a good base to play around with. Hey, honey, here, taste this.
Well, I thought maybe you was...
I'm recording, but taste this and tell me what you think. I think it's good. Do you like it?
Like flat egg.
Like flat egg? You put toppings or something on it? Would you like it?
Like salsa.
Like you don't salsa. My husband says put salsa on it. So I think it's a winner. And it's a fabulous base for other stuff to build recipes on. You know, it's not no carb, but it's a gluten-free alternative, and it's giving you some different kinds of non-starchy carbs that I think are healthy, a little bit of protein, something than traditional, you know, white flour or wheat flour. So something fun to play around with, and it was really pretty easy. So that's it. I hope you enjoy it, and if you try it and try different combinations of stuff, give me a holler and tell me what you found out. If you wanted to see what other things people are doing on the web, you could Google Socca, Socca, and I saw some exotic recipes. You know, I'm not an exotic person, but I think it would be fun to play around with. So, talk to you later. Hope you have a great Saturday. Bye.